Thank you for joining us for our celebration of our 5th cohort of our incubator, now K-12 fellowship. My name is Katie Booty. I'm the founder and CEO of Leanlab Education, and I'm going to give you a quick run-through time. So I grew up in Kansas City, was raised by 2 community organizers who instilled in me a fervent belief in the power of community and that those closest to the issues at hand were the most equipped to solve their own solutions. And also a commitment to social justice. So 10 years ago after college, I winded up teaching middle school math in a classroom at C.A. Franklin across the street from my great-grandfather's corner store. And I spent 5 years teaching middle school math. And I learned a few things. The first of which is that our children, our students, are the single most strategic investment we can make in realizing a future where equity is realized. I think that is absolutely fundamentally true. And second is that those closest to education, parents, students, and teachers, are our most under-leveraged resource, yet some of our most creative and inspiring talent. And in my work in Leanlab over the last 5 years, that only has been continually, that thought has only been continually renewed. Our educators and our students and our parents are incredibly resilient and creative, come up with inspiring solutions every single day in the classroom and keep me motivated. And 3, we have a lot of work to do. Our education system is in desperate need of an upgrade. Despite the talent and the resources we have failed to create a systemic solution that truly provides equitable access to excellent educational resources at scale. However, what we do know, where there is a glimmer of hope, is that those inspiring educators and parents or students still remain in our classrooms every day, creating creative solutions. What we haven't done is given them the resources to codify those and bring those to scale. So that's why after 5 years in the classroom, I became obsessed with these 3 points and started Leanlab Education, formerly the Leanlab. This was our original logo 5 years ago, out of an obsession with that. But I was in my mid-20s, I had no resources, I probably too hastily quit my job, started organizing literally in my living room and amongst borrowed conference room spaces, etc., cashed in my meager teacher retirement and thought I'd give it a go. And didn't have a lot of experience. So I was really learning trial by error on what nonprofit leadership meant, what educational leadership meant, what community organizing meant. And I got lucky. I was able to, me and a wonderful team of early partners were able to coalesce a motley crew of people committed to the future of education, people that were willing to have courageous conversations and dream of a brighter future. And we started the fellowship program. We thought that at that time, educators and parents and students, again, should have an opportunity, a safe place where they can come together and dream up new solutions that could push the boundaries of the classroom. 5 years later, we have evolved. We've learned a lot. Our logo's gotten nicer. And But we've remained committed. We grew from what we started in the early days was a 4-week program over the summer that took teachers on their summer break and gave them some resources and a safe space to talk about new solutions to pilot in their classrooms in the fall. 3 years ago, we started recruiting nationally. We extended our program from 4 weeks to almost 4 months. We began funding up to $35,000 in seed funding and began partnering with pilot schools where they could test new solutions. We're happy to say that we now have 26 alumni from our first 4 cohorts. These are their beautiful faces here. A few of them in the audience tonight. We have had 5 cohorts to date. We have mobilized 28 ventures, including our current cohorts. We've invested $300,000. And we're happy to say that our entrepreneurs typically don't mimic the typical American entrepreneur profile. 46% are people of color, 65% are women. We've impacted 33,000 Kansas City children and 1.3 million children across the United States through their ventures. And on the heels of our first 4 years, and as we were opening into this 5th year, this meaningful milestone, it was important to us to take a step back and recommit to what we believed in. And those are our core values. They are boldness, human-centered design, and equity. Boldness, to be relentless in the dream and pursuit and vision of something wildly effective and imaginative for all of our students. Human-centered design, to remain relentlessly focused on partnering with parents, students, and teachers throughout every single step of the innovation process, from idea conception and problem identification all the way through launch. And finally, equity, to never stop until every single child has exactly what they deserve and that every single entrepreneur, no matter what their background, is equipped with the resources they need. So with that in mind, we redesigned our whole program this year in our 5th year. And we went back to our roots. We did a community assessment. We interviewed hundreds of educators, students, and parents, and culled the data and found that there were 3 priorities that were in need of innovation in our local schools. Those were social emotional health. We heard from our parents, students, teachers that some would call it a mental health crisis, that we needed a better way to serve the social emotional well-being of all of our students. The second was advancing literacy and basic skills. That baseline proficiency was no longer enough to be competitive in our 21st century economy, that we needed to really find a way to accelerate our students' learning so that they can thrive. And last but not least, promotion of critical thinking, that we need to find ways not only for them to understand and comprehend information, but for them to take it on and really create and engage in critical thinking. So with that, we were tasked with finding the best entrepreneurs from all over the country that were willing to come to Kansas City, partner with our schools, and solve those problems. And we found 6 amazing ventures that you'll meet tonight, 2 that are based in Chicago, 2 that are based in Kansas City, 1 in Connecticut, and 1 from Washington, D.C. And new this year, again, recommitting to our core values, we assigned pilot schools. So we brought on staff Dr. Ebony Edwards, who is a PhD researcher, and we thought we really need to gather evidence in school sites that this is working. And we also really need to put our money where our mouth is and go deep into school sites and collaboratively designing new solutions. So we found 4 schools: Crossroads Preparatory Academy, Leah Tolber Community Academy, Pitcher Elementary in Kansas City Public Schools, and Lone Jack School District. Very diverse schools in their student makeup and bodies and their vision, however, very similar in their student needs. And we placed our ventures in these schools to collaboratively design research projects and also gave our end users, the teachers and administrators and students in the school sites, the agency to inform how these new solutions iterated and changed over time, and also gave in their hands the power for funding. So tonight we'll announce $60,000 in funding awards that our school site partners chose this morning. Our 2 pillars through our program focus on impact and viability. Our ventures have spent the last 3 months with us, focusing again on impact at their site with Ebony Edwards and their school partners researching the impact on students, as well as viability. do they have a solid business model that can sustain? And this is who they are. So, without further ado, I'm going to let you meet them in person, our fifth wonderful cohort. The way this is structured tonight, we'll have 2 pitches and then a quick fireside chat with our school partners, and then repeat. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring to the stage AJ DeLeon and Nick Freeman of Innovair.
Thanks, Katie. Hello, LaunchED. How are you? All right. Well, we're so excited to kick this off. We are Innovair. We're from Chicago, one of those 2 ventures from Chicago. And we make software that supports education leaders so they can impact the students and teachers that they serve. My name is AJ. I'm the CEO and co-founder. This is my brother Nick from another mother. And I have another one that's back in Chicago cheering us on. And for the 3 of us, education was transformative. It allowed us to thrive within our communities, found our company, which many people who look like us don't found ed tech companies, and to work at some of these amazing places that you see here. And we want to make sure that every student, all of you who are sitting here, teachers, and students that you serve have the same opportunities that we did. Nick and I met while working in Chicago Public Schools. We were both data strategists, and our job was to support leaders at that time and improve basically through strategic planning, change management, and data analytics. Him and I had a lot in common. But what we also saw is that the leaders that we served also had a lot in common, and that is that they experienced the same challenges, such as an overwhelming amount of data or too little data. And so that did not allow them to focus on or be able to prioritize what area they wanted to focus on. Secondly, they didn't always have the buy-in from their team or their resources to implement a strategic plan with fidelity. And thirdly, as a result, they didn't get the impact on student achievement that they expected. And when we saw the networks or other clients that had more of a portfolio management, we also saw that they also didn't get the results. So we decided to bottle ourselves up into a software with all the learning that we had over working with over 100 schools or so, into a software that guides leaders through 3 various stages. First, it helps them understand their problems. There are so many things they could focus on. This allows them to zero in on what is the low-hanging fruit, what makes the most sense. Secondly, it allows them to walk through a strategic planning process that also is transparent and connected and can be implemented with fidelity. And as a result, they get the return on education, as we call it, that they expect. So now I'm going to let Nick tell you a little bit about what we're doing here in Kansas City.
Thanks, AJ. So let me tell you about these 2 ladies here, Dr. Roper and Dr. Carpenter. Hey, Dr. C, I see you. So there's something about working with people who truly want to have an impact on their communities. And let me tell you, these 2 are truly inspirational in their leadership. As we went through this process, we were provided with amazing insights on how do we create a product that is truly human-centered and is aligned to the needs of our end users, along with getting the knowledge of what this Kansas City landscape truly is. The most empowering piece was what we heard. They shared with us the impact that our product was able to have on such a short period of time, that they were better able to access their data, to create a strategic plan that they could implement to have a positive impact on their students. Through Leanlab, we were connected with Leah Tolbert. Now we're able to have an impact on their 500+ students. And in our additional time spent here in Kansas City, we're able to create partnerships that have connected us to other schools and other partners and organizations that have helped us increase the impact that we're having on our students. It's not going to end there. We plan to continue to grow here in Kansas City so we can see this number rise. The Midwest is home to us. As AJ mentioned, we're from Chicago. KC is becoming our second home. But we don't want our impact to stop there. We have a plan to expand to new markets and continue to scale our work and impact the students across this country. So that's where you guys can come in and help. Connect us with those K-12 ecosystem education leaders that can champion our work and help us scale our impact and support our students. And also, For the investors in the crowd, I want to let you know that our revenue has already surpassed our end of the year numbers from last year. So we're ready to have those investment conversations and tell you more about our product roadmap and our business development plans. So, to close out, thank you Leanlab, thank you Lea Tolbert, and thank you Kansas City.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening. Yeah. My name is Clint Velasquez. I am the Executive Director in Base Academy of Music. I know there's a lot of educators out there, so I have a random question. How many of you have that student that you see is full of potential but never tries? Yeah. This is what they look like when they grow up. I hated school. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't my least favorite thing, except music. I loved music. It was where I tried. It was where I thrived. It made me come alive. And so, no surprise, later on in life, I became a music educator. And as a music educator, I just enjoyed connecting with my students. But I was teaching in the suburbs and living in the city and kind of looking around and wondering, where do families in my neighborhood learn how to play music? Where do they start? I started looking around, and things I saw was this. Our city has a giant music desert. There's a place in our city where there's lack of access, and there's other significant barriers that the families in that area face as well. That really broke my heart because of all of the benefits of music education that have been documented. We know that it develops our cognitive development, our executive function. It's an emotional language. We can connect with people simply through song. And so the students in that area were not receiving those benefits. They didn't have access to it. Our solution was this: one-on-one music lessons for children in underserved areas. Because I believe every kid should have a chance to sit down with an adult who says, I see you, I hear you, you matter, you can do something amazing. Let's prove it. Let's play a song. We do this in a simple way. As our approach, ignition. We create an environment where a kid says, I can do that. We give them a why. We focus on deep practice. They embrace struggle, learn that failure is part of the learning process, really develop a growth mindset. And then finally, master coaching. Teaching is a skill set, and we're just dedicated as teachers, as educators, continually growing and crafting our practice so we can be the best and offer the best to our students. It's a simple way to do it. You partner with schools and families to find the students. You teach music lessons and you remove the obstacles. We do our lessons on a sliding scale because we want to have a relationship with parents, and we find that cost helps us do that. We have this opportunity to partner with Lea Tolbert Academy, and the music teacher there was telling me this story. There's a kid that he was working with in his class. He said this kid had just severe ADD, anything would distract him, never focused. But then he signed up for drum lessons, and he's like, I walked into the drum lesson, and the kid was just laser focused on the drum. Not only that, a kindergartner came in who then started bouncing off the walls. He said he grabbed the kindergartner, brought him to the drum, and made him part of the lesson and focused that kid. It was a whole new student. These are the effects, the things that we can see when we give music to students. I have an amazing staff of teachers. 2 of them actually just opened up for Janelle Monáe a few weeks ago. Pretty cool. A couple others are out in the crowd, so if you want to hear more, find Grace and Lauren there. Would love to tell you about BAM. We are a 501c3. We're a nonprofit. And so we do that because we want music to be accessible and affordable and to raise the funds to meet parents halfway to providing for their children. What happened when we started focusing on our lessons was our student numbers started jumping. We had 25, then we had 75, then we had 100. Our goal is to reach 150 students this semester. It's quite amazing. Through the Leanlab, we've gotten to be able to grow our students and also do something. Test what are these benefits. Specifically, when we started having a conversation with Dr. Roper and Brian Davenport, the music teacher, they were interested in the social and emotional benefits of music for their students. And so we came up with this theory of action. Does BAM, in working with our students and our approach, have an impact on a student's ability to self-regulate? We did student surveys, behavioral system interventions from the school, and also the teacher lesson notes, and we had some really interesting feedback. For students, their identity, we create an ignition environment. The student said, yes, I started thinking a little bit about, who I am. What was more, though, is Brian said, every time we went and got a student and brought them to lessons, the other students looked and said, hey, I want to do that. We were creating an ignition environment. Were we teaching students to do deep practice? They were saying, yes, quite a bit. I was really trying. I was really applying myself in this. And then, what about master coaching? Our connection to a student, taking that moment to connect with them on an emotional level is so important. And the students said yes. Often, always, I felt like I could trust my teacher, that they really saw them as a mentor, someone I wanted to be like. That really matters to me. That says to me that my teachers are taking that moment to say, I see you, I hear you, you matter to the students, and the students feel it. So where are we going from here? Oh, I did want to say, the teacher wanted us to continue the program, and I am so glad to know that we will be continuing the program through the rest of the school year. It's going to be very exciting. But we want to reach 150 students. There's this big giving day coming up, Giving Tuesday. We need to raise $15,000 so that we can grow our program to 150 students. I know that there's some people out here that really believe in the arts, really believe in the power of music. I would love it if you would join with us and support the work that we are doing here in Kansas City to make our city a place so that every child has the opportunity to succeed and thrive. Thank you so much tonight.
And we're gonna call to the stage our wonderful partners from LaunchED Tolbert to have a short conversation with us. So please join us. All right, so we were really attracted to LaunchED Tolbert because it's deep ties to the community. It's one of the first charter schools attached to a community church. I think it just being inside that school, it's so evident how much you partner with the parents and families that live close by and that are families of your children. So I'm curious, as we've learned more about LaunchED Tolbert, Dr. Carpenter, can you speak to both the unique assets and challenges that LaunchED Tolbert faces at this time, given that you're a couple decades into the school's history?
A unique challenge, or maybe I'm not sure how unique it is, but a challenge that we are experiencing right now relates to our student attendance. We are constantly battling and helping and supporting our families in different dynamics that they are dealing with. And so we are constantly providing support and resources, but sometimes it does relate to their children's attendance. So attendance is a constant focus that we are really trying to work through as it relates to making sure students are present for the full school day.
AJ, will you go ahead and speak to how Innovair has worked with Dr. Carpenter to identify that as a key area of focus and then measure strategies and growth against that?
Sure. I mean, we're lucky. So what we did is we combined, currently the data is fragmented at the school. They have one system for behavior, another system for attendance, different systems basically that collect different information. And so what we did is we unified the data basically, so they could have one dashboard in order to be able to target and more quickly identify who are those families that have those special dynamics. So now you're able to more targeted, have an approach that's more targeted and allows you to then quickly act and move from this is the problem to now what are we going to do about it and how are we going to leverage the resources to solve it together.
Great. And I think one other thing that's unique about Innovair is your assets-based approach, how you really believe in building capacity in your leadership. Nick, can you speak quickly about how you've done that at LaunchED Tolbert?
Yes, with Leah Tolbert, Dr. Carpenter, Dr. Roper, and the entire instructional leadership team, we've gone through a self-reflective process. So everybody can be validated in the hard work that they do put forward, because again, back to that asset-based approach, we want to make sure that we're leveraging the capacity that we have in our building, and we're actually distributing our leadership, because we have experts across the table. We need to be sure that we're identifying that work inside of our buildings and truly allowing that capacity to spread the light.
Great. And Mr. Davenport, you teach music and vocal music, and I know Leah Tolbert has historically prioritized music education, but tying it to social emotional learning and as an intervention for children who have maybe struggling in class behaviorally is unique and innovative. So tell me more about how your work with Clint and BAM has worked to leverage music as an intervention for students.
So we've been able to take selective students that may have been a little more troubled or had a few more issues emotionally, to where we narrowed down our focus, talking to other teachers, counselors, our ISS teachers, and to identify students that might fit into what we feel might need a little extra intervention. So they come in and do their lessons once a week, and for 30 minutes they're with the teacher that really works with them while they're learning music. They're also learning life skills. They're learning how to work through hard tasks. They're learning how to control their emotions when they're a little flustered or frustrated. And it's carrying over to the classroom. So where a student may have had outbursts or may shut down because the task may be too hard, now they are seeing it as, okay, let me take a minute, step back, catch my breath. Now let's look at this. How can I break it down and really get through this task without losing my cool where I might have a few weeks ago?
Absolutely. And Clint, what would you add to that? What unique things have you learned through this process? BAM had already been around for a couple years. You started this new intervention research approach. How is this going to grow?
For a while, BAM has always been looking and saying, like, what is it that we're going to measure? What is the piece that is important, that we can really tell the story of the impact that we're having with our students? And this has just been a great process for us to, really narrow it down and say, okay, these specific measures will actually tell a really good story about what's going on in that music lesson room and then on the rest of the students' lives. And I think that we've really been able to narrow that down and say, we can tell a story and we can quantify the impact that we're having in students' lives.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Leah Tolbert, you've been a dream of a partner, and BAM and Innovator, we've been so honored to work with you. Thanks so much, and we're going to keep moving. So go ahead and take your applause. All right, and I'm going to welcome just to the stage Kelly Johnson from Doors to Explore.
Hello, Kansas City. Can I get some snaps for engineering? All right, I can't see you. Who's heard of STEM, science, technology, engineering, math? Because that's what this is about, and I'm an engineer, and this is what we look like. I'm the only one you're gonna see on stage tonight. Before I was an engineer, I was one of these students who didn't know where I was going. For the next 20 plus years after going to engineering, I was on the other side in the corporate world saying, how come we don't have more kids going into engineering? Light bulb turns on. We're going to build a bridge to show students STEM career pathways to your regional employers right here in Kansas City. And this same platform is going to help those employers talk back to those students to inspire them towards STEM. Why do we want to do this? 30 years ago, people like me went to school for intellectual pursuit. Today, it's all about jobs. Sound familiar? In the corporate world, we have a tech talent shortage. This is real. It's real globally, it's real nationally, it's real right here in Kansas City. This has major economic impact to the companies that are right around you. The Doors to Explore vision is to show the end game to students. Where do you want to go in the long term? And then back that up to near-term signposts. Our students understand subject schools and employers and figure out a pathway, how to get here to there, a lot like Google Maps and driving. A kid in Kansas City interested in electrical engineering is going to know what that is, where to go to school, and who they're going to work for someday. And that employer might be different than the company that hires biochemists. Sound right so far? Phase one, we're going to build a classroom resource for teachers so that they can assign some engaging content for students to understand STEM careers and build out pathways. Phase two is to get employers engaged. Doors to Explore wants to build engaging, interactive content to understand those employers. So then when they see names that you all know, Cerner, Burns & McDonnell, Black & Veatch, they can explore more about them and really understand what those end goals are all about. Initially, we want to sell a subscription to schools on a per pupil basis. Employers, we'd like to charge a one-time fee for interactive content development and then a fee for hosting thereafter. We are targeting larger employers to start and those with a need to hire STEM professionals. We know there are a lot of initiatives about STEM out there, but as if we spent 3 months talking to folks in Kansas City, what we've heard back is that an interactive tool to show STEM career pathways to local employers is unique. Our integrated approach is unique, our STEM focus is unique, and our multi-sided platform with students and employers on it at the same time is unique. Our team consists of 3 of us. I'm doing the STEM content. Guess why? You guessed it. Keith is our software rock star. Deb is our user experience person. The most wonderful experience about Leanlab has been engaged with Crossroads Preparatory Academy. And I was partnered with Dr. Jen Lacey. Raise your hand, Jen. Shout out. I was with her wonderful kids in a crew class, which is an advisory period where they got to learn all kinds of things. They used a prototype platform. Boy, this thing was not the polished product that some of my fellow fellows have had. This was buggy, it was black and white, it was undesigned. The kids participated in the development of it so we could get something that they liked. And when I asked them, and I was walking around the school one day with a stack of phones in my hand, and they were trailing after me like I was the Pied Piper. I said, "You want to help me design an app?" And this kid turned around, he said, "What?" I said, "You want to help me design an app to teach you about careers?" And he turned around, he said, "That's dope." There was buy-in with these kids, and I owe that to Dr. Lacey. In her words, she said, "We can improve career literacy with students. We can give them the words in which to express what they might want to do someday. We can understand post-secondary requirements. So if they want to be an aerospace engineer and they have to take 8 more semesters of math once they get into college, they may not blow off that second semester of math in high school." And third, because employers are eventually going to be on the platform, we want to drive community engagements. And Crossroads has a dedicated person to do that, like many schools today, particularly the academy schools. So we see a lot of benefits. Leanlab has been the highlight of our young existence. We're going to be continuing our work with Crossroads, and I hope to hear from all of you on how this platform could help you. Thank you, Leanlab and Crossroads.
Hi, I'm Sage, the founder of Words Live, and I'm going to share a little bit of our journey with you now. So 2016, Lin-Manuel Miranda wins the Pulitzer Prize for Drama. 2017, Bob Dylan wins the Nobel Prize in Literature for over 20 years of new poetic expression. Earlier this year, Kendrick Lamar, hip-hop artist, wins the Pulitzer Prize for his album. So the literary experts of the world are recognizing a larger, diverse canon. It's time our schools do the same. Every educator has that student who changed them. For me, it was Sarah. I was brought in to remix her curriculum. I built up a reputation of being able to come into classrooms, co-teach, model, and train on how to integrate song lyrics and alternative texts that are more culturally affirming for the students. The relevance of Sarah, though, is that she had failed the first 2 quarters of 9th grade. I was brought in the second half of 3rd quarter, where it was a literary nonfiction unit. So for those who have been out of school for a while, think the harder things, the speeches, the essays. We were working with analogy, argument, structure, and metaphor. But I brought in music. And Sarah, who had not paid attention the whole entire year, perked up, began to evaluate the lyrics, ended up getting an A, utilizing those same competencies in her writing, ended up getting an A in the quarter, finished 9th grade, went on to graduate earlier this year. Her teacher reconnected with her, a 9th grade teacher, asked her about her attitude and her success. She said that day in 9th grade literally changed her attitude about school. And we think we can replicate that all across the country, because I think there are millions of students out there who experience school the same way Sarah does. As we've done this work, we've seen students who I've seen are just chronically underperforming for no specific reason other than just lack of motivation to learn. And on the flip side, our educators are working so hard to try to figure out how to engage them, how to make education, how to make that experience relevant and affirming for them. We looked at these two problems and decided if we could bottle up some of the magic that we made happen in Sarah's class as a tool, then we could scale this particular solution to more classrooms that could use it. So the solution became an on-demand and a real-time platform that will allow a teacher to integrate music into their existing lesson plans. And the way we designed it was to be really quick and efficient. Step number 1, you just select the anchor text. That's that speech, that novel, the poem, the book, the item from your syllabus that you're required to teach, the title. Step number 2, you select the literary concept, your learning objective. What are you focusing on? What's the particular skill or competency you need to tackle? With those two inputs, it then informs the application of the criteria, and the application generates a set of music, songs that match that criteria. You then just select which songs make sense for you. Step number 4, you download and review all the content that you just selected. It has a whole presentation deck, assessments, learning questions, suggested activities. It's meant to be a plugin. You can download it and present remotely. You can save it to your own account, or you can plug it in right in a Google Classroom. It spits out a presentation deck. You get something like this. So this would be a lesson focusing on characterization. Your source text is Saki, but you're going to be doing it evaluating Kendrick Lamar's lyrics. It works all the way through till you get an exit slip. Again, completely generated on the platform. This is meant to be a plug and play. Use what you need and toss what you don't think you need. What we've done this school year with our beta. So we're co-developing with districts. And this is, think customization. So right now the beta, the first draft platform was based on Common Core, but we can customize to your specific state standards. The way we can do this is to do a full-out development deal with the district so that we can make sure the question stems and the assessments are just the repetition needed to get to the final, which is that state exam at the end. We offer individual teacher subscriptions. We finally built that out to customize per teacher, and we'll be having real live music artist engagement on the platform moving forward. And we're Google Classroom ready now. Where we plan to go for the future is unlimited access to songs. We want to have over 1 million songs by 2020. It's going to be unlimited content requests, meaning if something's not there, you can simply put a request ticket in, and we're going to go ahead and mine and customize it for you. We can also have unlimited song matching. So right now, the beta was in 1-to-1. You would have to pick one song for one text. Next year, you'll be able to choose unlimited songs for each text that you have. The reason why we've been effective in doing this, we have a great team. Along with myself, our CTO is a music producer. He's a Fortune 500 software developer. My program director, longtime hip-hop artist, Washington, D.C., 15-year veteran teacher, U.S. State Department cultural ambassador, and we have our tech advisor from the Harvard Innovation Lab advising us on our technology. We've had an extended team. You know, it's been a pretty good last 18 months, I'd say. We partnered with AT&T's Aspire. I'm in that cohort as well, with Leanlab, 4.0 Schools, Camelback Ventures, Halcyon, Harvard Innovation Lab, and we've been featured at ISTE and South by Southwest EDU. Our work in Kansas City was with Crossroads, and this was a great experience that we had. And through our research partners, we designed an experiment to test kids along two parameters, engagement and performance. We sampled their experience while using the platform. So the questions go as follow. around concentration, interest, and enjoyment. Simple questions. What did you concentrate on? What was interesting about it? What did you enjoy about the lesson? And here's some of our quotes. One of my favorite, this is the best class ever, said by a student in Felicia's class, 7th grade humanities class. Of course, I'm going to put that on the slide. We had to do it. And we had a great time there. We're going to continue that research. Oh, my clicker's sticking. There we go. Last but not least, for you to see how easy it is, just go to wordslivebeta.com. See how easy it is to build a lesson, integrate music, and see all the output that it generates in just a few simple clicks. I am very grateful for your time. Thank you for supporting this program, and hope to see you soon.
Awesome. And welcome to the stage, Jen and Felicia. We're so honored to be with you here. And we were so incredibly excited to partner with Crossroads Preparatory Academy, whose principal is one of our alum as well, Kirsten Brown. And what got us particularly excited about Crossroads was your interest in co-designing both with the teachers and the students in earnest. So what we wanted to ask was specifically first about Doors to Explore. What was that experience like, both co-designing with Jen as the teacher facilitator and piloting directly with the students themselves? So,
For me, it was all about being in the classroom after years, a long, long time. But getting direct student feedback, and Jen immediately grasped the vision and validated the need, and I think we worked together to figure out exactly what the product definition can be so that we nail it and get her exactly what she needs.
and Jen, what struck you as different about the product? How did it feel to be part of that early process?
Yeah, so I think STEM, everyone loves the idea of STEM, and it's so broad. And I think sometimes it means everything, and then it means nothing all at the same time because it is so broad. And when I started working with Kelly, I started listening to my students and how they talked about their future. And I remember one student said, I want to be Bill Gates when I grow up. And I said, well, what does Bill Gates do? And he said, software. And I said, well, what do you want to do with software? And he goes, I don't know. And so I just realized that there is a need for more career literacy. And what the app does is, it's really neat because she really did design it based on our students' feedback. So it runs like an app like they would use anyways, where they're swiping left and right. There's not a lot of input, it's just a lot of like clicking and swiping. And so what they get to do is go through different software careers, if that's what the pathway they choose. And so they start to develop a language around all the different things you can do with software. And there's career quizzes. And I think another cool feature is the milestones, or I think a lot of our students had these big ideas, but in order to have a vision, you also have to know like how to reach it. And what the app does is it allows them not only to explore different careers, but to see what colleges offer those pathways and businesses in Kansas City. And so I think it just helps them be able to talk about what they want to do in the future.
Awesome. And Kelly, your background is engineering, but not necessarily education. What did you learn from partnering with educators throughout this process?
I learned our IT doesn't always work the way you want it to. Anybody identify with that? I learned that my consumer-facing background isn't always appropriate for the classroom, and our follow-on research is going to be about creating some wraparound curriculum to use the tool so that we are not thinking about how to use it, but we really have out-of-the-box lessons encapsulated for a teacher to pick up and use right away.
Awesome. And changing gears to Felicia, your insights and candor were so relevant throughout this entire process. And one of my personal favorite moments was being in your classroom, seeing WordSlide demoed with students in real time. What have been some of the highlights of this experience for you?
So a highlight for me has been WordsLive has definitely provided me as an educator the creative and culturally responsive outlet that I know so many educators long for. I love music. Like it was said earlier, music is just like a universal way for us to communicate with each other. And so to see or to teach like highly rigorous concepts through lyrics was highly motivating to me as a teacher, but it was also super engaging for students, and they truly enjoyed it. So to be able to do something that passionately feels great, and also knowing that you're equipping your students with the skills that they need, it was a great experience.
That's awesome. And Sage, you came into this process with a beta version, but in the midst of a whole product redevelopment, and was really looking forward to getting that authentic user engagement. So tell us about how the feedback from Felicia influenced the future product.
Yeah, kudos to Felicia. She held no punches, and we had a lot of real conversations, which is exactly what you need when you're going from beta to something that's commercially available. And for us in particular, you gave us really good feedback around the trust that happens when another teacher recommends something. So the platform kind of is on autopilot, like it auto-generates a whole set of outputs that are meant to be plugged in. But Felicia gave us one product feature idea or suggestion that was, well, the exit ticket, I want to see what other teachers are using, right? Like I want to see how another teacher used that Kendrick Lamar example, and then I'm going to make it my own rather than it always being auto-generated from the platform. So that's just a great idea that we can do pretty easily at our next iteration that will be available 2019 on the platform as well. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for your time up here. We're going to keep going, but thank you for your feedback. All right, and I'm going to welcome to the stage Dr. Brad McLaughlin with K-12 Perform.
Thanks, Katie. Good evening. My name is Brad McLaughlin. I'm a very proud co-founder of K-12 Perform. I'd like to tell you just a quick story. 5 years ago, I was hired as the assistant superintendent in the independent school district. One of my job duties as assistant superintendent was our annual performance, our student outcomes. Independence was not performing well at the time. They had most recently received a 73% on their APR, on their annual performance report. And that's just 3% above the threshold that the state illustrates for provisional accreditation. I'm very happy to say that 5 years later, that the school district is performing at a 95% rate. And thank you. That's the story I want to talk a little bit about this evening. This growth, there's a very long story behind it. I'll tell the very short version though. We essentially facilitated the largest growth of any school district across the state during that 5-year period. And the story is really in the people. So let's talk about how that happened. Very human-centered design, human-centered innovation. We started with the students, and we started looking at student outcomes and identifying what levers could be pulled to increase those outcomes. We took that same process up through teachers, up through building leadership to district leadership, and really defined a set of actions that should be taken. It was at that point that we started building capacity. We built capacity in the opposite direction. We started with district leadership, then built capacity at the building leadership, then at the teachers and the students, and it really yielded a cycle, as you can see here, of capacity building and levers. The other thing that I'm going to go back just real quickly to this slide and talk about what you don't see. What you don't see in this slide is hockey stick growth, right? Hockey stick growth in an educational environment is not sustainable. Well, let me rephrase that. Hockey stick growth in an educational environment is not ethically sustainable, okay? What you see here is incremental growth, scaffolded year after year through capacity building. So here we stand with K-12 Perform. I retired from the school district on June 30th of this past year, and we started K-12 Perform, the team, My CEO and co-founder, Brett Simpson, is sitting right down here in front. Many of you know Laura Gilchrist. Laura was our very first educational consultant to come on staff. The second educational consultant is Dr. Beth Savage. Dr. Savage and I worked together in Independence side by side through that 5-year process. So here, there are basically, when we help a school district, we do one of two things. The first one is performance support across all 5 standards. What we have is the capability. Over the last 10 years, I've been a superintendent for 10 years, and during that time, I've developed a capability that we can reiterate in school districts and school buildings, and essentially walk in at any given point. We do this 4 times a year in any school district or building, and say, if the school year ended today, here is exactly what your student outcomes would be, right? And that's very powerful for leaders because it allows them to be agile and nimble and adjust strategy mid-year instead of waiting for summative data at the end of the year. I think there's a narrative out there right now about what that feels like, right? Okay. Number 2, we have a product called Analysis to Insight, and this was developed by my co-founder, Brett Simpson. Analysis to Insight, or A to I, measures alignment. It measures alignment between leadership, operations, and delivery. And the really powerful piece about A to I is it identifies the gaps that exist in alignment. It tells you what gaps exist, why they're there, and what can be done to mitigate those gaps. We are a very proud Kansas City company. We're born and raised Missourians and Kansas Cityans. We feel like we've made a good, strong impact. We're 9 months old, right? So who knows what it's going to be. But we're making an impact early and very excited about the potential. Our research partner for this Leanlab project was the LaunchED School District. Matthew Tarwater is a superintendent there, and he couldn't be here this evening. We've had some very early successes. We helped them between February and this last month. We helped them realize an increase in their college and career readiness outcomes from 86% to 98%. And I am very confident that that number will be 100% of their students graduating with those college and career readiness metrics. We've also developed a process with them that we're taking their teachers through, specifically in math, that really humanizes and demystifies this concept of growth. We'd just like to thank the Leanlab for the opportunity to participate in this fellowship, and thank each one of you for coming out this evening.
Hey there. Good evening. I'm the last one, I promise. No more hiding back there. So I am Shanti Elangovan, the CEO and founder of InquireED, and our goal is to bring inquiry-based learning to every classroom. So I'm just going to be super shameless here, and no oohs, no ahs, nothing. I'm going to get nothing. Yeah. So I want to introduce you to 2 of my favorite people, my kiddos, Sai and Veer. I want you to take a second and think about the most important kids in your life. They might be your own kids, your nieces or nephews, or your students. Now, I want you to think about what you want learning to look like for those kids. Do you want them sitting at desks, learning content for the sake of a test? Or do you want them engaged in applying that content, solving problems, and thinking critically? Well, if you're like me, you want the latter. And if that's what I want as a parent, I believe that as an educator, as a former teacher, instructional coach, curriculum director, and now as a leader of an education organization, I have an obligation to ensure that all students have access to that type of education. So how do we do it? Well, inquiry-based learning engages students in open-ended, compelling questions. It then takes them into a rigorous investigation where they become content area experts. But it doesn't stop there. It asks them to apply that knowledge and solve problems that are informed by action. We're not the only ones that think inquiry-based learning works. Over the last 4 years, over 66% of states have adopted standards that put inquiry-based learning at the center. So if there's so much agreement, why aren't schools or teachers teaching this way? Well, there's just not a lot of resources or training out there for this kind of work. We talked to hundreds of educators across the country, and they all said their teachers aren't trained to teach this way, there's not a lot of curriculum out there for it, and they don't have the time or resources to create it from scratch. So that's where InquireED comes in. We provide customizable inquiry-based curriculum with embedded professional development, so teachers get the support they need to implement with quality. How does it work? Teachers come into our Inquiry Builder platform and they customize a curriculum that's right for their students and their context. They begin to implement with students, and as they implement, they make adjustments. They continue to customize based on their students' voice and choice and their need. Along the way, they're assessing student growth through embedded formative and summative assessments. And all throughout, there's embedded just-in-time learning so that they gradually grow their inquiry-based teaching practice. Where we are in the process. We started with this work last fall, spent the fall and last winter and spring building towards a pilot program for this fall. We launched in 9 schools across the country, and we couldn't be more proud to be partnering with Pitcher Elementary here in Kansas City Public Schools. Pitcher's on the west side of the district and serves 100% students coming from low-income families. When I asked Dr. Howard, the principal over there, who's one of my favorite people sitting in the front row over there, I said, why did you pick InquireED? She said, well, we've been very intentional about building our students' literacy and math skills, and that's incredibly important. But that's not enough to prepare them for the 21st century. Our teachers are ready for more, and our students need more. Well, that's why Pitcher wanted to work with us. But there's a very special reason that we really wanted to work with Pitcher. And it's because a lot of people believe that this kind of pedagogy, this kind of teaching, doesn't work with kids like the kids at Pitcher. And our goal is to say, no, that's not true. It can work. But in order to make that happen, we have to go to the teachers and the students that are in those schools, and we've got to talk to them. And so what we're doing is we're iterating and taking what we're hearing from those teachers and those students, we're putting it into our instructional tools so that we can not only make it better for a Pitcher, but make it impact the schools across Kansas City and then across the United States, schools just like Pitcher. What we're also seeing is that it does work. This is one of my favorite quotes from a 5th grade teacher at Pitcher. Last year, they learned content, and a few days later, they'd forget it. Now they've gone so deep into the content that they can not only tell you about it, they can apply it to other areas. The last 2 months have been very exciting for InquireED. We had the founder of the National Social Studies Standards come onto our advisory board and is putting that rubber stamp on our curriculum, which really gives us some authority in our work. We've built our sales and partnership pipeline to over 100 leads. We had about a handful about 2 months ago, so that's some good work there. We also had an inbound lead from Denver Public Schools who's interested in a full district adoption of our curriculum. And then next week, we're super excited to be back here at Pitcher Elementary to showcase the work we're doing there to New School Venture Fund for a possible grant from them. I want to take a moment to thank Leanlab for this amazing opportunity. It's been an amazing learning experience for me and the rest of our team at InquireED. I want to also thank Pitcher. I cannot tell you how valuable the experience has been, and we are so excited to continue the work over the next 18 months at Pitcher and continue to think about how we make inquiry-based learning, not what education should look like, but what it can and needs to look like for every student in every classroom. Thank you.
All right, and we are honored to welcome the team from Pitcher up to the stage, as well as Ebony Edwards and Brett from the other half of K-12 Perform. All right, so for our final chat for the night, I'm going to start with Dr. Howard. When we first met, you were so excited to try to usher Pitcher into using a more dynamic approach to education and social studies and science. But we're also feeling the pressure of working in a testing environment in the district. So how did you come to value the importance of inquiry-based education?
Actually, I always did value inquiry-based education. But I live in Missouri. I work for Kansas City Public Schools, and everybody in the whole state of Missouri knows how important that MAP test is. But here's what InquireED has done for us. You think about what skills do the kids need in order to be successful in their lives now and successful in their adult lives. And things like collaboration, things like discussion, talking with the predicting, talking with people. So for instance, I'm going to use an example here. The roller coaster activity. Kids are talking about it, they're discussing it, they're saying, oh my, what if we try this? Or, oh, let's not try this, I think maybe it will do this. It's those, I want to say soft skills, but they're not really soft skills. They're important skills that don't come in the textbook, that don't come in the adaptive computing program to just build skills. It's the important life skills they need now and forever. And of course, they're called 21st century skills.
Awesome. And Jeanette, can you tell us how you were working with the teachers directly and coaching them implementing InquireEd? Can you tell us how InquireEd has shifted the teacher practice and student learning in Pitcher so far?
Yes. Teacher-directed lessons were the dominant in the classroom prior to InquireEd. I think using the InquireEd program gave teachers not only the tools, but permission to try something a little bit different, more student-directed, student-centered. And with the hands-on, inquiry-based activities that the students engaged in, the teachers saw a lot of growth and development as a result, and it worked great.
Of course, Dr. Howard.
I have to tell you, I have fabulous teachers. But InquireEd has really made a change just in these 3 months that we've had this in how they are approaching the other subjects. Not just, okay, here we have science and we have the InquireEd. I see it carry over into math. I see carry over to ELA. And I can tell you, my teachers in grades 3, 4, 5, 6 who are working with InquireEd, they are different people and they are loving it.
That's fantastic. And Shanti, you...
I think I just dropped the mic right
yeah,
now,
right? We're done.
I just dropped the mic.
Everyone asking.
Yeah.
Shanti, you have been an advocate of the research you've been doing at Pitcher since day one. So what have you learned from the process, and how will this be valuable as you seek to scale InquireEd across the country?
Yeah, I will be very transparent in saying that I was not planning, InquireEd was not planning on doing an accelerator. And I had the pleasure of meeting Stephanie at a conference last fall and was just kind of blown away by the research component that Leanlab was offering. I think the opportunity to really be embedded in a school this way, not just to get the rubber stamp of, oh, this works, but to actually iterate based off of that and really truly think about, Dr. Howard said it before, you can't innovate for urban schools and not go talk to them, and that's what a lot of people try to do. And so the opportunity to do that is irreplaceable. There's no amount of money. There's nothing that can do that for us. The amount of learning that we can do when we're working directly with the school.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself. And then Brad, given your experience as a superintendent and deputy superintendent in similar district settings, how is K-12 Perform designed to navigate this tension between obligatory performance and compliance with the state and pushing student learning toward the necessities and realities of the 21st century?
That is an epic question that could be orated upon for hours. Well, I really wish Matthew or Kathy from LaunchED or any of our schools or districts were here, because I think it's about process and it's about conversation and dialogue. What we try to do is demystify this state-mandated piece and really work with people. I'll use middle school math there as an example. They have an anomaly in their data. And as opposed to throwing software at it or throwing a resource at it, we're starting with students. We're going to the teachers and we're developing capacity. And we're doing that through conversation, through dialogue, to really diagnose exactly what the issue is and address it person to person. And I hope you don't ask me how to scale that type of dialogue, but it has proven to be effective in the past, and it has also done so through this research piece, which we absolutely love.
Fantastic. And Brett, your experience formerly is in the private sector. Part of K-12 Perform's product offerings is the Analysis to Insight tool. So tell us, how is that strategic alignment tool useful in a school district setting?
Well, I think it's useful in its simplicity. but the level of detail and insight that we give these leaders and who we engage in that alignment process. So 2 quick stories. The first 2 customers to take it. First customer, the superintendent had 5 people from her senior leadership cabinet take the assessment. When we went and delivered the results, she was blown away by the level of detail we were able to provide. And her question to us was, how do I get my Board of Education to take this? Because I want to compare their alignment to our strategy, our purpose, and key functional areas to my senior leadership's alignment to those same areas and see how that works. Second customer, we went, and this superintendent had 8 people from his senior cabinet team take the assessment. Similar type of result in terms of his reaction. He said, hey, this is the best tool I've seen in terms of strategic alignment and leadership development. And he says, I want every one of my teachers to take this. Can they do that? We said, hey, whether you have 2,000 teachers or 200 teachers or 20 teachers, the tool is ready. And he said, I want to understand what my teachers' perceptions are of the alignment to key functional areas that they're not usually asked about, as well as the strategy and the purpose of the district. And that will drive my ability to know where I need to communicate, how I need to communicate, and what I need to focus on. And so to get those reactions from our first 2 customers from an online assessment that takes 25 minutes to take is really impressive for us and very exciting.
Fantastic. And Ebony, you have been the research liaison on site in LaunchED between Superintendent Tarwater and K-12 Perform. And Matthew Tarwater wanted to be here tonight and he couldn't. But from your perspective, being the liaison, coordinating those conversations, what can you say is the early impact of K-12 Perform in that setting?
Well, the nice thing about the partnership is the fact that I think Brad mentioned that they started this work earlier in the year and they're continuing it now. So going in midway and starting to observe and do interviews has been very nice because they already have seen the impact. They've talked about, Matthew himself, the amount that he's learned from engaging about the APR and what he can sustain himself, actually feeling like going forward he's learned strategies that he can implement himself and that he can begin to empower his leaders, the other leaders in the district to continue to inform as well. So they're very adamant about the fact that there has been an impact already, the capacity building that Brad talked about, that they've been doing that. They've also seen the analysis to insight to analysis, correct me. An analysis to insight tool, and as Brett mentioned, they're really excited about being able to align their leadership, their teachers, their board as well. So it's very apparent.
Fantastic. And last question, it's a little bit of a selfish one. Dr. Howard, you and the Pitcher staff have been an early evangelist of the Leanlab process in terms of partnering with us in the selection of companies and throughout the entire innovation process as you've been beta testing. Do you have any words or insights from a leader's perspective on how this, this process has been for you?
I have to tell you, we felt extremely honored when we were selected to be a partner. And then we had all of the programs to pick through, and it was no decision whatsoever because she matched us to the T. I'm not kidding. I have fabulous staff. I had the same fabulous staff, but they are teaching differently. They are excited. Her program, not only does it just help kids, not only does it just have a curriculum on it, it has professional development on it, it has immediate access. I keep pointing to you. Immediate access to you. But then for Leanlab, I'm going over to you here in a minute. Leanlab, I have to be honest, I didn't really know anything about Leanlab until we started. You came over, I think, for a visit. I didn't know anything about it. But in terms of what does Leanlab do, not just for Pitcher, nobody ever invests in urban schools. When there's something new, the colleges, whoever invents it, goes to the suburban schools. Nobody invests in urban schools. Leanlab invests in urban schools. They bring innovation to us, and our kids, the kids we serve are phenomenal. We serve phenomenal kids. They are economically disadvantaged. They are people with wonderful hearts, wonderful minds. Their parents want the best for them, just like any other children. But there are some challenges in their lives that other situations, the children don't have those challenges. So very few invest in us. I think what Leanlab does is phenomenal, and it ought to be not just US-wide, it should be worldwide. So thank you so much, Leanlab.
Awesome. On that note, those are our fellows, so we're going to close out tonight. And we are just so honored to be able to celebrate our 5th anniversary with our greatest partners. And you guys can stay up here for now, and we're going to bring everyone back up. It's okay. I know I'm going. Don't run away, Jeanette. But I would be remiss without talking about the symbolism of tonight as well. We're in an old school building, Westport Middle School, which was where you and Marion Kaufman went to school, and has been retrofitted and renovated and brought back to life to be a center of innovation. And our very much intention as we look forward to the next 5, 10, 20 years, hopefully, is how do we continue to reinvent with the assets that are already in our community. So I think this is a beautiful symbol and a great way to close out. And I would be, again, remiss without thanking our wonderful sponsors, Hallmark here tonight, as well as Hall Family Foundation, Ewing Kaufman Foundation, Sherman Family Foundation, as well as the many other supporters we have to help us continue doing this work. With all that being said, I want to bring all of our fellows up, and I believe you have something to grab for your lead end users. And fellows. And our fellows have a token of our appreciation for our school partners tonight. So lead end users, will you please come up? And we can't stress enough that we can't do this work without elevating the voice of our schools. So we'll bring them all up. We'll thank them so much and congratulate them on their incredible hard work. And as they come up and as we organize all this, I do have one important announcement I want to make, is that this morning we had $60,000 in funds left to redistribute. And we brought our school partners back to evaluate proposals from our fellows to continue the work that they've already been doing. And I can say with the distribution of the funds, our school partners selected to continue the work in really meaningful ways. So over the next 18 months with these funds and with our partnership from our schools, we'll be able to give 32 more children access to individual music lessons. We'll be able to give 150 more elementary school students access to inquiry-based education. We'll be able to give 7 senior level leaders at Lea Tolber access to data-driven instructional coaching. And we'll be able to give the whole 9th grade at Crossroads Academy access to career-based education. So I think that's a huge win from this program and this morning. And there's so much more to come in the future. So huge congratulations, and thank you all so much tonight to celebrate with us. There's cake out there and more food. Please join us in the celebration. Thank you.